Chapter 30. Thanksgiving in my family was more boisterous than usual. Payson had brought her boyfriend, John, back with her when she'd come back the day before. I got up early and headed over to my parents' house when Devon headed in to feed the animals. He wasn't real thrilled that I planned to spend a second day in a row on my feet, but once he made his feelings known, he didn't push it. He did, however, insist that Gavin stay with me when he wasn't there. I didn't like it, but I understood and told my parents the truth, that Brandon had been in the area and Devon was worried. I didn't think I needed to add that I was too. Instead, I told them that he wanted me to keep someone around that would have a chance if it came to a hand-to-hand fight with Brandon. As much as I trusted my family and knew they would fight to protect me, they wouldn't stand a chance against someone with Kitsune's strength. I checked with my parents, got their cooperation and approval, and we told the rest of the family that Gavin was a friend who had no family in the area and no one else to spend the holiday with, so I'd invited him to spend it with our family, even if it was a day late. It wasn't the first time we'd invited friends who were alone, so I didn't think anyone would question it. Devon and I arrived at my parents' home in time for breakfast. I'd done it on purpose. I missed Mom's biscuits. I had the recipe and I could make them, but for some reason, mine didn't turn out the same. I didn't get to have them often, and this was a perfect opportunity to get some. I sat at the kitchen room table with Mom, Dad, and Devon. It was the smaller table that my parents used daily, and we could talk more easily than at the large dining room table. I had already eaten a large helping of eggs and sausage, and a couple of biscuits smothered in gravy. Now I had moved on to more biscuits, slathered with buttered and homemade prickly pear jelly. "I'll head out to the barn as soon as Gavin gets here," Devon said. "He should be here any time." I told him to come early and he could have some of the best biscuits on earth, I said between bites, but if he was too late, I'd have eaten them all. I took another bite and closed my eyes as I enjoyed the sweet tart flavor of the jelly melting into the warm bread. No one said anything, and I opened my eyes to find Mom and Dad busy eating, but Devon's attention was on me. I lifted my brows in question. "Do you always eat biscuits like that, or is it a show for me?" He used our mental path so my parents wouldn't hear. "Like what?" "Like it's a sexual pleasure." I blushed. It hadn't been my intent, but thinking back, I understood how he could see it that way. "Sorry, it's been a while and I love this stuff." I heard the crunch of gravel as a vehicle pulled up outside. Devon turned and I knew he'd heard it too. "That will probably be Gavin," he said. "I'll let him in." He got up and headed for the door, opening it before Gavin had a chance to ring the bell and wake Payson, Shiloh, or John, as it wasn't yet 6 a.m. "Come on in, I'll introduce you to everyone who's up before I take off." Devon came back into the kitchen, with Gavin not far behind, and introduced the other man to my parents. "Mr. and Mrs. Daniels, this is Gavin Waters. He's one of my enforcers, and the man I've been trusting to keep Nicki safe when I can't be there." He turned to Gavin. "These are Nicki's parents. They, along with her brother Rain, are the only members of the family who know about the kitsune. To everyone else, you're a friend who had no family in the area to celebrate the holiday with." "Nice to meet you, sir, ma'am," he said to my parents, offering each of them a hand in turn. "I hope you don't mind my intruding today." "It's not an intrusion, you're more than welcome," Mom said before fetching another plate for Gavin. "There's not a whole lot left," she shot me an unhappy look, "but help yourself to some breakfast." "Don't look at me like that. I warned him if he was late I would eat it all," I said, defensive. "Thank you, ma'am." He accepted the plate from Mom and helped himself to a couple of biscuits off the pan as he sat. Devon picked up his own plate and took it to the sink, running water over it before he turned back to us. "I'm going to head out and get started. I'll be gone a few hours, but I'll be back in plenty of time for dinner." Dad stood, leaving his plate on the table. "I'll go with you." Together they went to the hallway where they paused to put on their coats before going out to feed the animals. I sat at the table with Gavin while he ate. I helped Mom clean up, and Gavin pitched in when we started preparing the turkeys. With as many people as were supposed to be there today, we would need 2 of the large birds. We had a lot that needed to be done, so I grabbed a couple of bowls, sat down at the table with a bag of potatoes, and started peeling them. I was halfway through the bag when Payson shuffled into the room. Her short hair was uncombed and sticking out in nearly every direction. She wore flannel sleep pants and a sweatshirt that was several sizes too big. "Morning," she mumbled as she shuffled to the coffee pot. She poured a cup of coffee and stood in front of the counter, taking several sips before she turned and leaned against the cabinet, cup in hand. I watched as she realized that there was someone other than Mom and I in the room. Her eyes got big and her face turned pink. "Sorry, I didn't know anyone else was here." She started to leave the room. "Wait," I said. "This is my friend Gavin. He doesn't have any family in the area, and I invited him to spend the holiday with us." "Nice to meet you," she said in his direction. "Likewise," he replied, a small smile on his lips. "I guess I'll go get dressed now." Payson went back to her room, carrying the cup of coffee with her. Before she had time to get to the bedroom, I heard another door close at the other end of the house, and the murmur of voices. Then Payson's bedroom door squeaked open and closed again. A few seconds later, a man I didn't know appeared, dressed as if ready to start his day. He paused in the doorway, as if unsure what to do next. "Good morning, John. Did you sleep well?" Mom asked. "Yes, ma'am." "Good. Coffee pot's over there." She pointed him in the right direction. "Cups are in the cabinet above it, the sugar's right there, and there's milk in the fridge if you want. Make yourself at home." She waited while he fixed himself a cup of coffee and joined us at the table. "John, this is my daughter Nicki and her friend Gavin. Nicki, this is Payson's boyfriend John." "Nice to meet you," I said. "I'd shake your hand, but I'm all dirty." "Nice to meet you too, Nicki. Aren't you the one that just got married?" "I am." "I thought Payson said you were marrying someone named Devon." "I did. He's out feeding the animals with Dad. Gavin is a friend of ours. He has no family in town and no one to spend the holiday with. We felt bad and invited him to join us." John sipped his coffee. I wondered for a minute if I should act like the protective older sister and grill John about what he did and what his intentions toward my sister were, but decided that if I were going to do that, I should wait until Mom wasn't in the room. She would think it was rude. We sat around the table talking and getting to know each other while I finished peeling the bag of potatoes and stood to take the bowl to the sink, but Gavin stopped me. "I'll carry that," he said, picking up the bowl before one could. "It's only 10 pounds. I rolled my eyes. I knew I was wasting my breath arguing, so I picked up the bowl full of peelings instead and carried it to the counter. "Just set it in the sink, I need to wash them." He put the bowl in the sink and ran water over them, while I left the bowl of skins on the counter. We would add all the compostable trash to it as we cooked, then at the end of the day it would be added to the compost pile. "Do you think 10 pounds will be enough?" I asked Mom. "I hope so," she said. I did the math in my head. 13 adults, 2 kids, unless I'm missing someone. 10 pounds of mashed potatoes is more than enough, and we don't need to peel the potatoes for scalloped, just wash them. I nodded, going to the pantry and pulling out a half-dozen yams. "Will this be enough, or do I need to grab a few more?" I dumped them on the counter. Mom looked them over. "Add another 3 or 4. When I came back with the additional vegetables, I took out a pot large enough to hold them all, and took it all to the sink. I washed them, before dropping them one by one in the pot to be cooked. "We've got plenty of time, come sit down a while," Mom said. "Let me get these done, and I will." I finished getting the yams ready to cook, and then poured myself a glass of iced tea before sitting back down at the table. I helped myself to another biscuit from the plate Mom had put the leftovers on when we'd cleaned up. Payson came back, showered and dressed for the day, her hair still stuck up at odd angles, but she had done it on purpose this time. She refilled her coffee cup and joined us at the table. "How you feeling, Nicki?" she asked. "Fine, it seems like the nausea has passed and I'm hungry all the time, otherwise I feel great." She turned to Gavin. "So, how long have you been in the area?" "I've been here for several years," he said, answering her question, but not volunteering any extra information. "Where are you from?" "I grew up in southern Illinois, my parents are still there." "How are you liking Arizona?" "I love it, it gets a little warm in the summer, but I love the mild winters. We get snow often enough that I don't really miss it, but not like the ice and snow we got up north, and if I really missed it, I could just go up the mountain for a day or so and have my fill." Payson laughed. "That's true. There's plenty of snow where I'm at, if you miss it," Shiloh said, coming into the room and heading straight for the fridge. Either Payson had warned her that Gavin was here, or she dressed before leaving the room in deference to John. Either was possible. She pulled a canned energy drink from the refrigerator, popped the top and took a long drink before closing the door and coming to sit with us at the table. "I'm Shiloh." She held one hand out to Gavin. "Gavin," he said, taking her hand and shaking it. "Married less than a week and out with another man already," Shiloh said to me, one brow lifted. Gavin's jaw dropped with shock at the comment. "Gavin is a friend of ours," I told her. "It was Devon's idea to invite him." "Where's that husband of yours now?" she kept teasing. "Out feeding the animals with Dad." She turned back to Gavin and started questioning him. I don't know if she was interested in him, or if he was just the only single male she wasn't related to who would be around today, so she was seizing the opportunity to make a new conquest. "If you want me to get her to leave you alone, just let me know." I sent to him silently, hoping he would pick it up. He caught my eye and nodded, letting me know he'd heard me, but went right back to talking and flirting with my youngest sister. The day went well, my brothers showed up, Cameron brought Janelle, and as usual, Rain came alone. Brittany brought her family and a couple of pies, and we all sat down around the table. I glanced around the room, happiness filling me at the sight of everyone around the table. For a moment I paused, as it occurred to me that next year I would likely have a baby on my lap. The thought surprised me and I sat quiet until Devon leaned over and whispered in my ear. "Are you all right?" I smiled. "I'm great." "You sure?" He sounded concerned. "Positive, I was just thinking about how much I enjoy having all my family together like this." I smiled to reassure him, took his hand in mine, and squeezed. I pushed a wave of warmth and happiness down that new pathway between us, letting him feel for himself how all right I was.